Hello, hello guys. I don't know how long today's stream will be, but it's been some busy days, so I wanted to at least get a bit of time in here. And I do want to play too. I am just a little tired of the meta, but still enjoy the game a lot. So like at least until next patch, I'm not too sure how much I'll be streaming. Because I do want to try not to burn out as well. I can't quit until the mana is here. I have to stay strong. I think I just missed the Q as well, which kind of sucks, but ain't no way I'm gonna sit and wait for that. What? There's no way I hit the fucking edge of that. Losing a lot of speed going for these. I gotta get some more momentum now. Unless the map's just over. Okay. I wish I could look back. I would like to see how far away I am from the corruption stuff. Slow time and increase maneuverability for 5 seconds. I don't know if I like that. And I don't know if it's permanent. So I'll pass. like this Q to pop. I know I missed the Q, but still. It's taking a little long. Press the wrong button. No. Q pop, but it is missing the last dot. That's just classic. What the fuck is this? Find the portal. I see it. And the Q reset. Shit, man. Unfucking believable. It's gonna be a long queue day, I guess. Good thing that I enjoy this game a lot. It's just a haste stream now. Run, it's catching up. Every time, man. I always fucking hit my head on that shit. I donate. Hope we're having a good day so far. I've been in queue for about 15 minutes now. When my queue popped, it lacked it was missing a dot, and then the timer ran out, and so I had to requeue. So far, pretty fucking slow for me. This is kind of nice. The sun setting. Is Mice updating? Yeah, maybe we won't get in time. Maybe. I see Nika queuing as well. Like, at this point, I'm gonna end up in that same queue. Because I missed it the first time. We'll see. I don't know how far in game they are now at this point. Looked like a pretty good queue though. I'd actually like to get into that one. I was basically out all day yesterday, and I really wanted to try out the, I guess, whatever movement patch. I'm still not really sure what that truly means. So I did, once I got home super late last night, I tried to do just like 1 or 2 casuals. I kind of forgot if I only did 1 or 2, but the main thing I felt was that minions don't get knocked back when you hit them anymore, which is interesting. It kind of sucks for some gods that they don't do that now, because you can't, like, when the wave is going towards you, you can't push them back into, like, group them up, which is a bit strange. But I think it's better than them being too pushed, because playing shit like Bellona, you have AoE autos, and they just all spread out is so annoying when you finally get them to group up. But I suppose we'll see how it goes. There's less lag spiky in the beginning, but there's some times where it bugs out. Okay. Yeah, I hope to get a good idea of how it is. Like how it feels and how it works throughout the day. Oh, Jesus Christ, they just shoot randomly. Oh, it's this thing again. I gotta find its asshole. Climb inside of it. Oh, my laser hell. It tapped out! No! Oh my god. Game, why? Q-Pop, you fucked me. I am banning though, so I do need to take a look at this. 'Cause, 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 20-second Q, that sucks. But it's kind of still good for me though, because I'll definitely be against you, I think. So maybe it is good for me that you're not here. A Wheelix though. That's why the Wheelix is banned. That makes sense. I didn't even think about it. I really don't want to play on Afro for sub. Let's see if I can pick it for our team, because otherwise I might just pick it to not deal with it. I can't do. If they get Aladdin Afro, I'm gonna step on a Lego. I'll pick it. Lasers. Like, this isn't really a, you know, like a dodging game basically. Like, how much? Like, so many lasers. I feel like you could just get unlucky and just get smacked because you can't really dodge. Still, this boss isn't that. This boss is not that hard, so it should be fine. Oh shit! Already here. Bonk. Wait, who am I against? Whoops. There's a few names I recognize. First time I see a non-linear map this game. The bosses are usually like a round arena type thing. Then you just chase the boss and kill the boss. There's also challenge levels that are like based around finding things, but those are that's the only thing. All like the main quests, I suppose you can call them, like the main scenarios, are generally not. I found you too, Neasels. I was about to say the reverse. Senils. It's a beach game. It's a beach game. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going back to the Q game then. Endless shard. Somewhere in this hub world there's a shard that is different to all the others. If you want to see how far you can truly run, see it out. That's interesting. Might do that at some point. But that structure doesn't really fit this, you know, fit the Q game aspect as well. This fucking momentum is ass. Gotta be faster. Wait, is that not where I'm going? Thought it was. Okay, it is. I just hit something else, I guess. Alright.
My gods, love it.
Oh, first game of the day playing Aphrodite. What happened? How did we get here? How am I rank 5 on Aphro? I have a skin on this fucking god now. What happened? What am I doing? Alright. This is a Dark Souls reference. Look at this guy.
Victory dance.
Minions have spawned.
Aphro's cool for a bit. Kind of got sick of playing her.
Especially for me.
Yeah. I mean, she's one of those gods that I will pick just so I don't have to deal with it. That is literally this game. I don't want to play her right now. At all. In few cases, I'm like, sure, I'll do an Aphro game. It sounds decently fun. It's kind of like the Odin mentality. I'll do one game here and there, but I don't really want to play the gods. It's not really for me. This one was truly just, I don't want to deal with it. I can't be asked to deal with this shit. I'm picking it.
Let's make this fun. Spoiler.
Bye.
I will.
I'm healing though, you're not. Careful, buddy. Is he double potting? He is not. He has one pot left?
Yes.
Your middle tower
Let's make
is
this
under
fun.
attack.
Spoiler. I will.
Be careful, enemy missing.
Okay.
Back off.
He actually stuck around here.
Back off.
Gank middle lane.
Your middle tower.
I also
is
need
under
to get
attack.
used to the next patch that I actually need to focus the Warhorn a lot more.
First
Because that shit is actually going to be super valuable. For giving permanent cooldown. Or is it permanent? I don't know. I just remember it gives cooldown. Like, even if it's not, like, just if it's just a cooldown buff, I'm completely fine with that as well. It's very good.
Gank.
I don't have anything. I just used everything and missed.
Attack.
Enemy ultimate incoming.
Oh my god. Back off.
an ally.
Oh, it is permanent? Damn. That is actually kind of insane. Dude, I'll take that over the fucking rocks.
Your right tower.
Dude, high pressure solo is gonna be so dominant then in the next patch. Because you'll just escalate out of control if you get both rocks and cooldown. It's kind of wild.
Wherever there are gods
I thought that was a, I can't fucking tell, obviously, but I mean, it's support Athena. I was way more scared of just getting taunted, so I just beats as well. I want to immune the damage from the ult and then beats the taunt. It just didn't matter. I'm still gonna build full damage in this game though. 10 totems, 20 CDR. Dude, that's actually insane if you can control it.
Under attack.
You're gonna get so many stats from just environmental stuff. Wild. How did that miss, man? Damn, wasted birds.
An ally has been slain. Your right tower is under attack.
Back off.
Take those.
Oh my god.
Be careful, left.
Your right tower is under attack.
This is how it should be. I don't think winning solo should give you base stats though. Like it will make you.
Ultimate is ready.
It's gonna make your raid boss against your own opponent too, like in lane. I think one of them, like the fact that they're permanent, I think is the main thing. Like a cooldown buff and stuff like that obviously existed in Smite 1 as well. So that wasn't really the problem. Damn it, man. I need to expect a dash. I keep missing my fucking shit because of it.
Some other time.
What is he building? He feels so squishy. He just doesn't have anything online yet, that's why. That kind of sucks. I think that should have been a kill. I should have 3'd, then ulted, then 3'd again. That would have killed. But my mind is too slow in this first game.
Your right tower is under attack.
Enemy missing left.
An enemy has been slain.
Retreat. Right back.
Your right tower is under attack.
Dude, this guy actually just ults on cooldown. Every time that shit does shit's up, he's going for it.
Get away.
Just missed everything. Wild. Dude, how am I missing the easiest ability in the game to hit? It's fine, he's missing shit as well.
Retreat.
I need to just throw out my one, I think, to try and wake up, because I'm missing this shit too much.
Enemy missing left. Be careful
Ultimate
right.
is down.
I want it back.
Some other
He's definitely missing too many ults.
Back off.
Dude, I'm doing a lot of damage to him considering he has Genjis. That's crazy. And I haven't fucking used it, or even...
An enemy has left the game.
Okay.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, I haven't even hadn't bought my stuff yet. I feel like I'm doing a lot of damage to him.
Enemy missing left.
missing middle.
Come, my dogs.
Your middle tower is under attack. Slay an enemy.
Enemy missing
Your
middle.
right tower is under attack. An enemy has been slain.
I believe
Be
in
right
you.
back.
Completed.
Nice job.
GG. Especially for me.
Back off.
Gang. Ultimate is ready. Completed.
Come, my dogs.
It's well played by Ares as well. And Ares that can hit chains against the Latin is gonna help us quite a lot.
I'm returning to base.
I will ward middle.
Back off.
I'll be there. Turn and fight.
Right lane.
He's in the right jungle.
Enemies in left lane.
My ult just wasn't up in time. I could have beast the taunt maybe, but I just don't think I would have survived. I needed my ult to survive the damage. I'll do a Chronos Pennant here. I don't want to do the same build as I did last time, even though it does nice damage. I absolutely need some cooldown.
Your left tower is under attack.
Like, I feel like, obviously having lane control, yeah, back to the whole soul lane permanent buffs thing. I think, obviously being rewarded for winning lane is, like, should be a thing, but there's so much to take on the side of the soul at the moment. And next patch with,
Help.
you know, with the cooldown thing being added to the Warhorn is even more insane. Like, right now, I think Soul is already very bloated with things to do. I feel like I don't even have time to do my bag harpies anymore, because I need to make sure that I'm always getting the rocks. Like, maybe even rotating. Like, it's just...
Back off.
It just feels really bloated. It's mainly once rocks became so good that I felt like I needed to start rotating a lot for those. And they just take a lot of time. The rocks are quite time consuming unless you're playing shit like maybe Thor or something where you just kind of go over the wall.
Wherever there are gods in need, I'll be there.
It's wild.
Okay.
Left lane. On my way.
I'll gank left
Okay.
lane.
On my way.
Help!
An ally.
Enemy ultimate down. Back off.
Guys, where are we, man? Like, dude, there's no way it took that long for my team to respond. That's crazy.
Your right tower is under attack.
I went back in to try and make sure they weren't running away, and we just didn't go in. And we also lost on the right side.
Your
Like,
right
this is,
tower.
this just ended up just not being worth it. And I still died.
Enemy spotted.
Athena fucking ulting this dude on cooldown is getting really annoying now.
Your right tower has been destroyed. An ally has been slain.
Your soul ain't quit. That sucks, man.
An enemy has been slain. Double kill. Killing spree. Killing spree. Your middle tower is under attack. An ally has been slain.
I mean... Am I going protection? What do I do to respond to this? Because this can't keep happening. I could... No, Pretty Wind wouldn't really work. I don't have any protection.
On my way.
Actually, Medal of Discord might help. I'll do that. Medal of Discord will help a lot.
Enemies in middle lane.
An ally has been
Ultimate is
slain.
down. Retreat! Retreat!
Save yourself.
Thanks.
No problem. Forward here.
Enemy
Defend
missing.
middle lane.
Get away. Enemy missing left.
Your middle tower is under attack.
At least it will help a lot now that I actually have Chronos Pendant online.
Enemies at the gold fury.
Attack the fire.
Enemies in middle lane. Retreat left lane. Retreat left lane. The gold fury. Defend.
Your team has destroyed the gold fuel.
Killing spree.
You are irreplaceable.
An enemy has been slain. Your middle tower is under attack. Enemy spotted.
Attack.
Oof, hate to see it.
Back off.
Not really.
An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
You're the star of the show.
Hello.
Enemy camp left.
I can't believe I was forced to go fucking Medal of Discord. And now, knowing my log, it won't happen again. Athena's done ulting Mordred, it will absolutely not happen again.
Back off.
Be right back.
Okay.
Back
Help
off.
middle lane.
Yes. On my way. Enemies in middle lane.
Defend the
Your
fire.
middle tower is under attack. Help middle lane.
Enemy spotted.
Defend the fire giant.
Enemy spotted.
Back off.
Your team has destroyed the fire ant.
Enemies behind us.
Completed. Retreat.
That's actually insane how we didn't get a single kill there.
Retreat.
Ah, why am I beating, man?
An ally has been slain.
Okay.
Your team has destroyed a
What are we
right
doing outside? I guess
Your
just
middle tower
living
is
zoned.
under attack.
And can we not just run from them? They're gonna come back with full HP.
Destroyed.
What am I building? Probably some pen. Because apparently I need to kill tanks this whole game. Hey, Joshi. Yeah, there's some wind things. You just saw it there as well. That spawn after Gold Fury gets killed, and people can use those on the map. I believe they're toning it down a
I'm
bit
gonna
next
pump them
patch
to
on
the
how
ball
many
again.
there's gonna be. Like they won't be in lanes and stuff, if I remember correctly.
Enemy spotted.
But yeah, people don't really like them generally.
Defend the fire giant.
This teleporters need to be removed. They just need to be in the middle of the map, as they were in Smite 1, instead of to the sides, which is just stupid. Then I won't mind them as much. I do think the teleporters is a cool addition, but the fact that there's like 4 of them and they're on each side is just, it's too much.
Shut down. Enemy missing. Down.
Back off.
On my way.
Be careful, run. Enemy missing.
On my way.
Alone.
Be careful. Be careful.
The Pyromancer has arrived.
Wherever there are gods in need, I'll be there.
Middle tower is under attack.
I'm out of mana.
On my way.
Chase the enemy.
Be right back. Out of mana.
Completed.
Completed.
Oh, I'm glad they did it so I could test if my Medal of Discord was worth buying. That is the case. Dude, oh my god, what is this motor build?
Just start it and see what happens.
Good luck.
Your team has destroyed the fire giant.
An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Attack! Attack middle lane.
Attack
Your
left
middle
lane.
tower
right.
is under
I'll defend.
attack.
I'll defend.
Okay. Nice gun. I will show you more.
Be careful, middle.
Enemy spotted.
An ally has been slain.
I don't know why Kabul can win mid.
Destroyed.
There's actually just zero reason to.
Is under attack.
Enemy missing.
Right Phoenix is under attack. Destroyed a left enemy. Killing spree. Retreat. Your middle tower is under attack. Beware.
Gank right lane.
Yes.
Enemy ultimate down.
Enemy missing.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Attack.
Your right Phoenix is under attack.
Let me make it! Oh my god. The trap! At least Cupid's dash is super long. Ah, that's fine. Guys beats.
Okay.
Cupid beats.
I really want to back up for this.
Be careful.
Your team has destroyed the Gold Fury. Be right back.
Okay. Gank right lane.
Gank right lane.
I'll attack. Your left tower is under attack.
Enemy spotted.
Okay.
On my way.
Chase the enemy.
On my way.
What is even happening? We're just chasing kills.
On my way.
On my way.
Killing
Follow me.
spree.
Dude, why are you running away then? Dan, you just ran away from me, man.
No, I tried running back to you when I saw you. It was kind of 10 people in my face, so I had to run.
It's unfortunate.
Aladdin has no ult.
A middle enemy tower. Middle enemy tower. Attack fire giant. Enemies have returned. Attack fire giant.
Rolling beats as well. Rolling no beats.
Fire giant.
Get away. Calm yourself down.
Fire giant.
Back off.
Enemy spotted. Your team has destroyed the pyramids.
20 seconds FT.
I will ward.
Yeah, sorry guys, I'm not reading chat too much. I've been just focused on this game. When I play Aphrodite, I kind of, when I'm linked to someone, I gotta make sure that they were good. The thing is, like, I understand that Hi-Rez wants to try and make something unique, you know? Like, they want to make a new mechanic. I think that's cool. Do I think this one is it? No, not really. But I think it's better that they try than not, you know? Like, try this out for a while, people don't like it, remove it. But like, experimentation is part of game development.
Your right Phoenix is under attack. Your team destroyed the fire giant. An ally has been slain. Your right Phoenix has been destroyed.
Ah, how is that not hitting?
On my way.
I'm just not fast enough.
I have Link, I don't know if you catch him though. She's gone.
I can't catch them, I don't have anything. These fucking tornadoes make it so much harder to try and chase. Dude, and no one came. Oh my god, God.
Okay,
On my way.
on my way.
Can't reach them.
Enemy spotted.
I mean, right there is one of the prime examples of why I think that's absolutely stupid. Like, someone who shouldn't be getting away is just getting away for free. Because there's fucking random ass tornadoes all over the map. It's so stupid.
Ultimate is ready.
He did jerk me though. I actually think I should have caught him. He jerked me around the rock. Didn't expect it.
We still have 3 people with FG, we can just push. Probably push right then, I guess.
Yeah, when is push up right?
Attack right tower.
Attack right lane.
Just PS5, we have better team person.
Yeah, Kakolka, you need to stay with us instead of going alone. We need you.
Yes. On my way.
They want to split every time.
Enemies in left lane.
Attack right lane.
Yes. An ally has been slain. Follow me. Ultimate is ready.
Oh, didn't realize he would just dash in like that.
No shot. Oh my god, you ghosted, you ghosted. This is my thing.
Damn.
Your left tower is under attack.
I guess I'll just save for Rod. Go get the Warhorn if you can, just be careful.
I haven't seen my snake in 10 minutes.
I will ward middle.
Thanks.
Tease did it.
Your middle tower is
The
under
dog's gonna bark. Now that it's getting hotter, I leave my windows open, and he hears a lot more. Now he's barking a bit more.
enemies in right lane. Enemy
It's
spot.
like, what the fuck is that sound? Do you hear that shit? Yes, I do, my dog. But you gotta shut the fuck up.
Completed.
Follow me.
He juked my kiss. Brother, come back to me, you need healing.
Come, my dove.
I'll defend right lane.
Okay.
Dude, why can't people just stay with... I hate playing Aphrodite for so many reasons.
Just don't fight
Stick with
until I
me,
get
man.
there.
On my way.
Yes.
Come, my doves.
Your right phoenix is under attack.
It's fucking Cupid, man.
Has been destroyed. An enemy has been slain.
I'll defend.
Okay. Enemy spotted. I'll attack. Your team has destroyed a middle enemy. Your titan is under attack. An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
Just end while he's in the land. Nice.
The dance as beautiful as the
Especially for
falling
me.
leaves.
A bit of an awkward one, I would say, just because of lack of grouping and stuff, but... we did it. It was a Dan diff. I do think it was weird how Cupid just always refused to just group with them. Like, getting a Phoenix is good, don't get me wrong, but if we're sieging and Cupid is still pushing, like, we will just automatically win that. I'm gonna say, fuck those stars, I need momentum. The bad shit's catching up. I mean, I think it would be sad for any game to really die if it has a player base, just on a general basis. I don't think any game deserves to die on just in general. There will always just be people like playing it without any like other thoughts and simply just having fun with it. Like I think those people deserve to just have that fun. If people don't enjoy something, I think they should just not play it. That's about it. I don't think there should be anything else to it. Like wishing like a game to die or something like that seems a bit extreme. It just doesn't really make sense to me. If you don't like it, do something else. Like I've quit this game so many times, like, but I would never want it to just die. I hope that it lives on for the people that still enjoy playing it. I think it's different if the developer is like actual like bad. Didn't have you added? Well, like on a friend list. Good queues at the moment. It's all right. The one I was in was all right. There was no one like being completely different in skill levels, at least in that game. I think maybe Mordred, but that's about it. Was maybe one person. And I'm pretty sure Nika is queuing as well at the moment. And at least when I like before my own stream, I was looking at it. It looked like a pretty good queue he was in. So maybe if you're lucky, you can get into that one. Damn it. I'm a bit optimistic going for that. I like the aspect. I mean, there isn't a balance patch just yet, as far as I know. But aspect Poseidon is a cool idea, but I haven't tried myself. I don't know if I would like it as much, because I guess a big part of why I like Poseidon is because of the like the high mage damage that he does with the trident, combined with kind of being like an auto attack based one. I don't know. It's a bit weird. I just don't really like that aspect very much personally. I don't think it's for me, but I might try it eventually. But I'm also solo, right? Like, if I went solo Poseidon, I wouldn't go for the aspect. I really think it fits my type of playstyle very much. That being said, though, if it is really good, then I would probably just be forced to play it a little bit. And maybe I would then love it, who knows. It's kind of like Hades, right? Hades was probably the most boring god to me in Smite 1. In Smite 2, he was my second Radiant god. Because the additions to Hades just felt really good to play. He wasn't this stationary weird god anymore. Like everything you did in Smite 1 felt so stationary. You barely even played the god. You just pressed the button and you sit there for a bit. It was boring. Now he's actually so much fucking fun. Yeah, it feels really good with the old change. Granted, he is obviously very, very good as a result of it too. But my god, is it a good quality change. It's the same thing with the Ymir being able to move in his 2. And having a small knock-up on his wall. Like, stuff like that just makes the gods way more responsive and fun to play. I think Ymir's is basically perfect, because it didn't add that much in terms of like making him broken or something like that. It just simply made him feel so much better to play. I think that's like peak Smite 2. It's what you want from the gods. You want something added to them that doesn't change how they play necessarily. They simply just make them more more smooth to play. I think that's where Raz was kind of bad, honestly. Because Raz made him a different fucking god in the very beginning. Now it's kind of just the same after they tweaked it a bit. But before, it was basically that Ra became a fucking melee tank and you only relied on your 2. It was really boring. That's the most boring Ra's ever been. Yeah, usually it will exist. There tend to be just one good one. That's true. Usually there's just one big queue and then the rest are just kind of split. I think this one is fine though, like the one I was in. This one should be alright too. I think. I feel like I remember this guy for not a good reason though. The middle guy here. It's been a while though. And I don't want to just point fingers.
Select your god.
Dude, I actually kind of don't want to play Cabrakan, but I should. Fuck, man, I should have banned it. I would rather play Sobek than Cabrakan right now. But fuck me, man. I'll fucking pick it then. Whatever. I'll play it. Yeah, I don't miss the meta where it was just Hades versus Ra every game. That was just boring. Straight up. Then I would rather want the boring tank meta we have right now. Oh my god, why is it so framey? Fast! Oh my god, lasers! And the fuck was the random hand? Ow, I didn't mean to do that. I'm too fast. Let's go through an AA-based soul lane. I don't really like that either, to be honest, because then you're just seeing Amma versus Bellona every game. I don't like that either. I just want a good mix of kind of what we had towards Season 11 and Smite, where you could kind of just play anything in solo. Like, if you're good enough, like, you just fucking pick anything. Right now, it's just, you're at such a disadvantage if you don't pick a tank. Like, I want to play some more Aladdin, but you know what happens if I pick Aladdin and I go against, like, Thor? It's gonna be the most boring lane of all time. Because I can't fight him ever. Like, I would have to rely on rotating. I think Aladdin's kind of a bad example, because I do think you can actually make it work. It's one of the few squishies I think can still work in solo, because you're very safe, like a safe laning phase and safe clear. But I guess Ra. Maybe Ra is a better example here. If I wanted to play Ra, it just wouldn't work. He's gonna get shit on by basically everything in solo right now. I would love to play some Ra, but that's also full mage Ra, which, you know, it's probably not gonna work either way. There's too many bad matchups. I'll push with Typhons and Valorbeck. I don't miss outpush, man. My god, it makes me not want to play the game. What I'm looking forward to is Apollo, though. Quite a lot. I love Apollo. It's one of my favorite gods. But when people pick it for the split push meta bullshit, he's so unfun to deal with. I don't think I'll generally be doing that. I'm sure that I will probably have to at some point to do it when I play him. But I don't pick him for that reason. Alright, let me focus on the game. Also, going to mute the game because I can hear it in the back. Wait, did they reveal who the next like Neo God will be? Haster? I don't know that one, but I'm really excited too if it's like a cosmic horror one. I want that theme just generally more in Smite as well. I think it's a great theme. I'm a Bloodborne nerd, guys. Of just From Software in general. I love the cosmic horror stuff. That shit's cool. Just the name is Haster, the Yellow King. Okay. Like what pantheon is that?
Hello there, friend. Hey, nice to meet you.
Hi.
Yeah, Bloodborne is really good.
Minions have spawned.
Like all my favorite games, or just my favorite developer, I should say, is From Software for making like Dark Souls, you know, Sekiro,
Hey, nice
Bloodborne,
to meet
Elden Ring,
you.
like all that stuff. I even loved the new Armored Core. Like I just play anything they make at this point. Like they're just my shit. Same as Cthulhu. Not sure what they call in Smite. Gotcha. Saul. Oh my, I missed the creep. Oh, our clear was ass. Saul. That's a weird one. Dude, I can't believe I missed another creep. That hasn't happened in a long fucking time for me. Fuck.
Okay.
Might be as a Sano gank. No, might is submit. Killing Zeus again.
An ally has been slain. Your middle tower is under attack. Your left tower is under attack.
I can't believe Susanna went and took the rocks. Like, what the fuck is that? They aren't yours, Mr. Jungler.
Enemies have returned to base.
An enemy has been slain.
Well, season.
Cancel that.
No. Get right.
That sucks, also getting leeched away from here.
I'll be up a bit.
Why is Susano doing those fucking things, man? What's that shit? I don't have the timers on them now. I have no idea when they spawn because of it.
Middle tower is under attack.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about going in back in.
Your right tower is under attack.
Ska köra Aegis?
Yes. There's a Kipper here too.
That sure is too bad.
Like what do we build? Like Phoenix Feather, I guess. I'll try Phoenix Feather first, see how it feels.
Eat a sausage.
They don't have any natural anti-healing, but I imagine with the gods they have, they can build it very easily. But at least with this item I shouldn't die into, so.
Your left tower is under attack. An enemy has been slain.
This is so boring, this matchup, holy shit.
An ally has been slain.
I always regret picking Gebracken. I feel like every time I do, it's just the most boring game of all time.
Slain an enemy.
Okay. Ultimate is down.
Ah, that sure is too bad.
Ward here.
Jag får just vara det jag blir.
I think Phoenix Feather is one of the better additions as well, because it will still be heavily countered by anti-healing. I fucking need the XP for this.
An ally has been slain. Hi. Be careful, middle.
Enemy missing kill. Enemy spotted.
An enemy has been slain.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Enemy missing. Enjoy yourself.
I'll just yoink these real fast. Soul meta is pretty boring at the moment. I think it's at least like fun it's been in Smite 2 overall. I think solo has been the best role in Smite 2. It's been so varied in what gods you can play. It's actually been super fun. That is not the current case.
Be careful, left. Ultimate is ready. Your middle tower
Well,
is under attack.
that sucks. Actually, I don't want this. Give me the fucking Baron's Brew. I regret that. I want Wars instead. Baron's Brew won't fucking save me.
Your middle
Wars
tower
might.
is under attack.
That is not a good placed ult. That's unfortunate.
Yeah,
That should have
good
been a kill. Yeah, I'm TP.
That sure is too bad.
Your right tower is under attack.
Yes! Ultimate is down!
Be right back. Enjoy yourself.
Enemy spotted!
You have slain an enemy.
I'm glad he pulled me.
Tower is under attack.
That helped close the distance. And now these rocks are mine. Take that, Susano.
The Pyromancer has arrived.
Enemy missing!
Your left tower is under attack. An enemy has been slain.
Heck yeah!
Okay.
It's ready!
An enemy has been slain. Has been slain.
Oh, that sucks. Mystic Himmel is gonna help so much. My damage is overall lower because I had to go Phoenix for the first. You're getting worse at Smite. What's up, Nate? You wanna talk about it?
Enemy missing!
Nice. Your left tower is under attack.
Dude, my cooldown is so ass. Maybe I should buy a different item first. Damn it. I really shouldn't have gone Phoenix Feather. I should have gone for Axe first. There's too many items to build in solo at the moment.
On my way. An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Your right tower is under attack.
Is he tanky? He is.
You're welcome.
Probably just your old damage Baron. Does very little, but is enough to kill. Just take the buff down.
Okay, thanks.
Enemy ultimate down.
Toa. Just because another dog barks doesn't mean you have to. Let them be barky dogs so you can be the silent cool dog, you know?
An ally has been slain. Retreat! Your middle tower is under attack.
Be careful.
Today's not been it.
Set up an
I mean, you have, sometimes people just have bad periods. Happens to me as well. You could just be in a bit of a slump. That's fair enough. That does happen, and it's completely normal too. It's not just a gaming thing either. It's just a general. Sometimes we just feel a bit off, and it's affecting our work or hobby or whatever it is you're doing. Well, don't feel too bad about it. It's normal. It sucks to be in that time, obviously, but
okay.
just fucking tanks.
I can play as bad as I want to 2 tanks.
Enemies in middle lane.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Enemies at the fire giant.
Okay. Didn't expect Uller.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Saw lived for too long because Odin missed ult. That's about it. He ulted while she was still in her 3. That was just not good. Because it allowed her to keep running. And it allowed her to heal. If she is inside the ring, she's literally, what is it called? She can't heal and she can't move, right? Sol should die here. That was a very missed Cupid ult though.
An enemy has been slain.
Enemy missing.
My cooldown was also terrible. Normally I would have had Pridwin by now.
On my way. Okay.
Ward here.
Okay.
Still no rocks, man. I think it is Susano, just going full ham on taking those rocks.
Okay. Thanks.
An enemy has been slain.
Really want to try and see, just get this tower.
On my
Enemies
way.
in left lane.
Your left tower is under attack. Enjoy yourself.
Gank!
Dude, how are we not chasing? Why are we chasing the wrong person?
Your left tower.
Dude, there's no way, man. Brother, can we chase the actual target instead of the Kepri? He just jumped on me.
I just went for the easy kill.
Classic Dan.
Your middle tower is under attack. An enemy has been slain. Shut down. I'm just getting.
Makes sense. You saw how I threw an axe and then I sundered him as Cabrakan? That's crazy,
Can
man.
we do a big one or not?
I don't have sunder.
Your team has destroyed the fire.
We're bomb now though, but if you want we can try.
We can try and put it.
Let's look out for Sol.
Your right tower is under attack.
I have Sunder. What is the 500 or?
Yeah, I have bomb as well.
I'm back now.
Yeah, everyone just back. I'm just gonna get this right tower first. Then we should push as a team. Oh, finally, cool down. I can play the game. Actually, do I get more magic protection? No, I don't. It's just Sol. Bullshit. Okay.
An enemy has been slain.
You, my friend, are the cherry on top.
Attack middle lane.
On my way.
Attack left lane.
Push left wall to Sano.
Sano beats down as well.
We can get Phoenix. Wall to Sano is still down.
Destroy the left enemy tower. Killing spree.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Just get mid Phoenix when we can. We could definitely try for the end here as well, but I'm not sure.
Sure, the
It's,
tank and use the dagger.
Your team
With
has
use gun away.
destroyed a middle enemy tower. Your team has destroyed a middle enemy
get right tower and then just back out.
Take notes.
Yeah, she can go through walls with shell. Yeah, that's kind of the anti. You can do that as my one as well, though. Right? Am I crazy? I believe so. No, never mind. You need like some different item. Now they just combined it. Shell is basically like the spectral thing now. Oh, you're talking about Sol. Never mind. That's my bad. Yeah, Sol can. She's always been able to do that. She can always go through player walls. She could do that in Smite 1 too.
jungle
fury.
buff. Okay.
Excuse me? Why can't I buy you? Why are you being weird? Oh, it's because I can't buy another active. Oh, I'm stupid.
Enemy missing.
Ah, shit. Well, what do you lead into then? Do they have crit? They do, sure. I'll go Spectral then. Damn it, I have too many active items. Get Discord. I never have this many actives, so I forgot.
Help!
Give me the ick.
Your team has destroyed the Pyromancer.
Take this jungle buff. No.
Enemy missing. Attack. Enemy spotted.
Follow me.
Your team has destroyed the right enemy team. An ally has been slain. Your right tower is under attack. Be careful. Shut down.
Fast as the wind.
That was weird. Zeus just ran in and died. Then Odin ran and died.
Your right tower is under attack. An ally has been slain. Your middle tower is under attack.
I have dagger, we can still fight Cupid.
Be careful.
That's fine, they're backing up.
How long
I'm
is
gonna
the
back.
battle?
I'm gonna back here.
I have 50 seconds left on dagger.
Is it go for Bell then or not?
Yeah, we could look for Susano or something, maybe laser backing.
Yeah,
I see someone in blue.
Has arrived.
I'm coming. I can get a cage in him, he just dies.
Your left tower is under attack. You have slain an enemy. I'm getting warmed up.
Attack middle lane.
Spotted.
Let's go mid.
Attack. Your team has destroyed a middle enemy phoenix.
I'm quite low.
We can probably get the Phoenix real fast if we're careful. Alright, just go. It's a bit hard to end this, because we're playing it a bit strange. But they're still letting us get Phoenixes, which is good.
Your team has destroyed the Gold Fury.
Can I finish this? I can. Nice. Full build. This rarely happens these days. I mean, that's partly why, like, on the whole thing of yellow damage in general, like, technically I do have 3 damaging items, if you count Mystical Mail as well. That's the reason why tanks are as OP as they are at the moment. Because you just build these 3 things, and you have so much.
Get me.
You have so much damage.
The fire and the game.
Get fire. Might as well, it's just spawned.
Your team has destroyed the fire giant.
Susano's
I
still
will
left.
finish
We could just get this for
12
free.
12 seconds.
Capriel, then Arm Assault. I wouldn't say it's the only reason why tanks are OP, but, you know, when tank items are already as valuable as they are, and then you also have like 3 extra abilities that deal damage, an Axe right now, for example, and Lifebinder for a long time was really like broken as well, with like a 15-second cooldown. Like, it just... You just straight up have an extra ability. Like, what's the point, right? This is definitely a weird meta. But we'll see what happens next patch, because they're changing things up quite a bit and they're adding new items. It's weird. I feel like every time I play Caprakan, I just don't have a lot of fun. I played Aphrodite Caprakan in my first 2 games. I swear, guys, I will not super try hard pick in my next one. I swear it. Or at least I will pick something I actually feel like playing, instead of purely basing it off the fact that they're OP. I use sound back on. It's actually getting kind of hot. My apartment is real bad when it comes to absorbing heat. And by bad, I mean it's really good at doing that. Specifically that. And so it's just so fucking hot in my apartment. Because it's kind of like, it's kind of like an old building. It's just straight up pure... How's something called in English? Like, old stone walls, I guess? There's a specific phrasing for it in Danish, I just don't know how to explain it, but... Oh my god, that was bad. Point being, it's hot. It's very, very hot, especially when summer comes around. It's gonna be very, very uncomfortable being in my apartment, so... If I still do play Smite at the time, I will probably be streaming quite a bit less. Because wearing a headset in that heat is not something I want to do. Not by choice. Ow. Yeah, I live on the 4th floor as well, so I'm pretty high up there as well. Which means the sun will, once it starts hitting me, or my apartment, it won't stop until like 9 p.m. When it's, you know, when summer actually comes around. That shit's not gonna be fun. Like, it's gonna be hot when I go to sleep, and I hate it. Still, though, it's been cold for long enough. I'll accept that it's gonna happen at some point. We do need the heat, so our plant life can survive. Sometimes a bit too much heat, though, is kind of bad for us over here. That's just gonna kill our plant life. But we need it. I'm just not a summer person in general. Heat and me is not a good combo. Like, even if my apartment wasn't that hot, like, heat just still isn't really my thing. Dude, where am I being? Where am I going? Like, some days are pretty hot. Like today. Well, there's not a whole lot of wind. So it's just pure heat hitting my apartment. That shit does get pretty hot. Like, I'm sitting in like t-shirt and shorts now as well. Where yesterday I was sitting in like, you know, like a full-on hoodie and long pants. You know, it changes a lot at the moment from day to day. This map looks pretty cool. It's a bit different in its visuals. Yeah, it's been somewhat cold here. For these, I wouldn't say cold. Cold probably the wrong word. It's more like it's just been very windy, which makes it kind of cold. Like, it's not like we've had snow or some shit, and it hasn't really been raining much lately either. It is literally just Oh my god, why? It's just, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's probably just been the wind that's been making it so chilly. I need to ban. Ban the Afro, I'm not playing it. I'm banning the Bracken as well, I'm not playing it, and I'm definitely not being against it. I mean, that leaves Bari open though. I actually want to deal with that even less. If it's on a good player. You can pick the Bracken. Here you go. No, they picked Zeus.
Select your god.
Dude, I'm not playing it again. What do I want to play though? Cerberus maybe? Could do a Cerberus game. Actually, I feel like playing Mordred. I want to play Mordred. Still kind of try-hardy though, I'll admit, but at least this one I actually really enjoy playing. Like yesterday, I went to some friends and we grilled, but it was so windy that we could like the grill died like every fucking 15 minutes. It was terrible. The food was still great. It just took a very long time to actually heat it because of it. We sat there for like 3 hours trying to eat. It was so windy. It was so random too, and we thought it wasn't going to be that bad because we were sitting in a very closed-in area, but it was so windy. But we'll just have to do that again at some point when it's not as windy. And probably when it's a bit hotter as well, because once the sun went away, this shit got cold. But again, it was very windy, so that obviously doesn't help. They have so many of these things? Holy shit. I can buy whatever I want. Who am I against? Kind of the only one I recognize is Gunter. Also, where the hell did my game go? I actually don't know where it went. It just tapped itself out of existence. I can't see it anymore, but you guys still see it on the screen. Where the hell did it go? What? Oh well, whatever, I guess. I tapped out or accidentally moved it or something?
I require one of everything.
What am I against? Nuwa? Oh my god. Today is just not gonna be fun laning. What is happening? Why am I meeting mages? They're just gonna sit in tower. It's gonna be more fun on Mordred though. I'd rather deal with a mage on Mordred than Bracken. Depending on the mage, I suppose. I would have much rather dealt with Sol on Mordred than Bracken. You move focus windows with arrow keys. If that helps, yeah, I can try, see if that actually helps. No, it's just gone. I don't know where. It literally just went off my screen. Like, I don't have... like, where could it go? It must have just glitched out. Like, I'll just have to close the window. It doesn't matter. Like, it's just my queue game anyway. I'll just close it and reopen it.
An ally has left the game.
Damn, he DC'd. That sucks, man. I'm probably still gonna do my blue here, but I'm gonna lose XP on the wave. Because otherwise they might just invade this. I can't be asked to deal with it. Actually, no, I don't think they will. Because it's a new one. I'll be fine, actually. I'll just go through the wave and go back to my buff.
How unexpected.
Do I know him? I don't think I do.
An ally has returned.
Did I hurt your feelings? On my way.
Unfortunate indeed.
How
Your right tower is under
unexpected.
attack.
It only sucks that I'm gonna be losing pressure for level 2 here, which just shouldn't happen realistically. That's kind of the only weird thing.
Tower is under attack.
But he's playing really up, so I mean, level 3 might be an easy snack if he's gonna play like that. No way it cancelled my one. Man, the animation even went off. That's crazy. Wild. That's absolutely... I feel robbed. There's no way he should have survived.
An enemy has been slain.
On my way.
Yeah, I always forget all the shortcuts to moving windows, and I guess not just windows, but like all sorts of shit. There's so many shortcuts for things on the keyboard. Like when I learn a new one, I just forget it instantly.
You have slain an enemy. Your right tower is under attack.
LF4. Oh, that one I do remember, I suppose, yeah. That one I've fallen for once as a kid, and I remember it since. I was mad. I was fucking pissed. It's a classic, though. Gotta try at least once. Yeah, we all fell for it. It's such a funny one, too. Though it could really suck depending on what you're doing.
take this jungle.
Your middle tower is under attack. An ally has been slain.
Oh, that's too bad.
Exactly what I expected. Nuwa is gonna sit in tower and jump now. It's a classic. I expect no less from Nuwa solo players.
That's too bad.
That's what Nuwa does, though. I mean, yeah, but she could play more aggressive. It's not like she's forced to. It's just how the way people decide to play it. She's a good aggressive god. Obviously, something you have to be a bit more careful with, but she's not bad at being aggressive. I play her solo. Well, I wouldn't say sometimes. I don't really do that anymore. Oh, he swapped mid. Okay. Dude, that's so stupid. My ultimate swapped mid animation, and it didn't. My level 1 didn't go off, and then it just didn't do anything. That was so stupid, man. That was actually just a kill right there. Only way she lives is if she beats and then ults.
Unfortunate indeed.
And that's a worth trade for me. I get her beats and her ult. That was just kind of stupid. Damn you, transforming ultimate. Like, I feel like this one right now really is not that worth it. But I'm really trying just to get used to killing it
Your middle tower is under attack. Enemy missing.
for next patch. Because it's going to be so valuable for next patch.
An ally has been slain. Enemy missing left.
Well, how's my ADC level 6? Well, I guess just ADC is being behind. Never mind.
Killing spree. Your right tower is under attack.
Unfortunate indeed.
An ally has been slain. Your right tower is under attack.
Be careful left.
An enemy has been slain.
That was really silly of Loki just ulting in. It's both their beats though.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Nuwa got a kill, I don't believe it. Also silly of me, I wasted my one on a beating Hercules. She's still around though. Probably not. I can probably dive her once I have more items. I'm just not tanky enough yet.
Enemy missing. Enemy spotted. Enemy missing left.
I'll keep building the usual. I'm not really too afraid of Nuwa here. And if I want to dive her, I need more physical protection. Her combo doesn't do that much damage just yet.
Your right tower is under attack.
Retreat.
An ally has been
been slain. Your right tower is under attack.
He's actually just jumping in tower. That's wild.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your right tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack. Slay an enemy. An enemy has been slain. Retreat left lane.
Two smite from left, so get out, I think.
I wanted to try regardless.
Gank left lane. Be careful, right.
Actually, Herg is mid. I can walk up.
Has been slain. Your middle tower is under attack. An enemy has been slain.
Huge.
Thanks!
Your middle tower has been destroyed.
You've made an elf smile today.
Zeus is actually ahead of me though,
Your
which
middle
is
tower is under attack.
kind of crazy. He's not even getting many, like a lot of the kills. It's just more farmed.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Who's taking the rocks? Loki might have taken them, I suppose, in this one.
Your left tower is under attack.
I do have 8 rocks already, which is nice. What I need to do is just rotate right and help out there.
Your right tower is under attack.
This is gonna come now. Be careful.
Your left tower is under attack. Be careful.
See if I can get her faster. She won't expect it since I was just over there.
Your left tower is under attack. Your left tower is under attack. Rampage.
No more.
Your right tower is under attack.
He's fucking axed me.
Enemy mission. Destroy the left enemy tower.
On my way.
An enemy has been slain.
Attack the cold fury.
Attack the Gold Fury.
Uses everything up Aegis.
Ready.
I can ult for vision when it gets low.
Has destroyed the Gold Fury.
And do not as well.
Oh yeah, sure.
I need something. Probably just gonna go for an Ogis. Ogis? Onis. Because with Nuwa, Zeus, Bacchus... I mean, it's probably honestly the Nuwa and Zeus I'm most afraid of in this game as a Mordred. The amount of burst they can put out is gonna be the worst for me.
Killing spree. Your middle tower is under attack.
Don't think I can even... How is he full HP getting a double kill? What happened?
Use Bacchus ult down.
An enemy has been slain. Your left tower is under attack. Enemy unstoppable. Shut down. Your right tower is under attack. Your right tower has been destroyed. Your team has destroyed a middle enemy tower.
On my way.
Yep, can keep him there.
Enemies have returned.
Too late, he is back.
How unexpected.
If you said it a bit earlier, then sure.
Yeah, it's fine, no worries.
Feel your sound.
Enemy spotted.
He's on a beat.
I want to finish Oni Hunters before I try to gank Zeus. I want to make sure that I'm tanky to him. He always seems to have Bacchus with him as well, which makes it even worse. Like the worst thing about Momotra is that he's pretty easy to peel.
Uses that triangle.
Don't see Iza.
Fit to consume both life and soul.
Attack. An enemy has
On my
been
way.
slain. Your team has destroyed a right enemy tower. An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
One do pyro?
Yeah, sure.
Your team has destroyed the pyromancer.
That was Heartbeat, Zeus, Aegis.
Mm, 17 seconds. I'm not sure I want to stick around for that. Unfortunate. Yeah, I get you, Nate. Like, you might just be having a bad day as well in terms of everything going wrong. Like, sometimes it's best to just not play them, take a break, play something else maybe. Like, I have those, I've had those on stream too, and I generally just end the stream early and I go do something else, because sometimes things just don't work out. It just feels like everything is against
Should we
you.
just take the fire guys, right?
Yeah, I'm back to
Right, I
starter
just
now.
use 20. I don't have a center for fighting.
I grabbed one.
I have Sunder for fire as well.
Before the forest's wrath.
Are we committing?
Yes.
Right.
Tis her.
Spirits guide your path. Your middle tower is under attack. Destroyed a middle enemy tower. Your right tower is under attack.
I don't have ult for this.
I think we should go left. Like, I
Yeah,
don't do a lot of damage with
get
it.
left tower. We're just keeping them here. We don't want mid to get pushed.
Your right tower has been destroyed.
I'll back and deal with this Anami real fast. Just be careful.
Your team has destroyed.
She's not here.
Your right Phoenix is under attack.
You can just
So
reset.
just back out left.
Yeah, stay back. I'm gonna rotate straight away.
I want back to start with.
Back in gold, maybe?
And then we're just gonna do gold, yeah.
I need to on the gold. So.
You have slain an enemy.
Finished, yes.
Damn. I don't know why she was still here. I thought you backed. Like, she would have even seen me push up the waves. Do not know why she would want to fight that.
Your team has destroyed the Gold Fury.
I even had dagger. Like, there's no way she wins this. I have everything. I'm super fed and I have fucking dagger. Dude, my dagger just ran out. No. Damn, dagger ran out while I was in the fountain. That sucked. That's just my fault with Cupid. I don't know why Cupid was with me in there. Getting pulled in. I was just stupid.
Save yourself. Okay.
Do I do shifters?
We got the best Phoenix at least.
Yeah, that's just me and Cupid's fault for getting pulled. We could have ended if we didn't do that.
I had a really bad tracking.
Oh yeah, shit, man. I forgot shield splitter.
Okay.
I don't know why I didn't think of that. Of course I need to see shield splitter. That shit's always good.
Shut down. Your left tower is under attack.
Oh, she got back in time. That sucks.
I was spawning in like 10 or so.
Yeah, I'm gonna TP over.
Yes.
We'll fight.
Damn, I should have stayed. Now they know I've TP'd. Could have used that no wall to my advantage.
Yes. Attack.
It's a beats, I'm pretty sure.
We need to burst fire before they get here.
Destroyed the fire giant. Attack fire giant.
Nice. Nice. I played that Olo exchange pretty bad. I should never have missed my first 3 on Nua.
I'll attack.
You should have died way earlier. Whoops. I think I'll just look for the Izanami.
What is it here?
It keeps pushing up.
Attack right lane. On my way. On my way.
What? How? How did my 4 miss? I have no idea how that missed. I legitimately don't know. That feels like it should have hit.
It is.
Victory.
Vengeance is mine. Ours.
Once again, though, this was weird. I just don't know what Nuwa and Izanami were doing this game. They should have just grouped. Though I granted Nuwa did trial in that last team fight, I just always went for her, because she was by far the easiest thing to kill on their team. I could have gone for Zeus. Realistically, should have gone for Zeus, because I think he's the only reason how they could win. Maybe Herc as well a bit. But that was just weird. Sorry about that. I was checking some Discord stuff. I'm opening my Q game again. Did it save my progress, though? That's the question. I would expect it not to. Because why would it? Oh, it did. Nice. It just checkpointed me, I guess. Also, this will probably be my last game. I gotta... I don't know, it's too fucking hot, man. I'm sitting here sweating. I kinda just want to remove my headset and go grab a cold drink. Just sit and chill. I usually, like, make dinner soon either way, but... Ow. I framed her out when someone tried to trade me. Let me just make sure that I play this game. And pick and ban. Wait, don't blame me for what? What did I miss? Bracken? Bari? Like, what else is open here? I guess that's it. Usually Bracken would be in that spot. Probably should ban Cabrakan over Bari, because I think a good Cabrakan will be worse than a good Bari, if that makes sense. Just because of the nature of tanks being more powerful at the moment. Hades.
Select your god.
Le Hades. What do I want to pick into that? I haven't played Chuck in a while. Maybe I do like a damage Chuck? I'll do a damage Chuck build. Well, not full damage, I suppose. Hybrid. Hybrid Chuck. I think full tank Chuck is ass either way, so... There's too much screen shake on this map. I get it, there's explosions. Did we really need the screen shake on every one of them? Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I also feel like it's gonna be a little bit worse in the beginning of the heat coming in, because we're just not used to it just yet, or I'm not anyway. It's been real cold. Like my body just feel like it's not used to the heat because it was so cold yesterday. Lose 100 sparks, gain pickup range. Yes, I have so many sparks. I will take this trade. This is a boss. Probably need to wait with this a bit. Oh, it's the snake again. This is the hardest of the bosses so far. Oh my god, it tapped me out again. Every time. Damn you, game. It's when I join a game, it seems, that it taps me out. Because it's trying to tell me there's a game happening. Okay. I kind of want to try Blink again. I need to see if this works again on Chuck. Let's do it. I haven't bought this thing in weeks. Well, since it was changed. How does it work again, though? So... yeah, I can't use it in combat. Damaging or killing an enemy god within 4 seconds of being used. Wait, damaging or killing an enemy god. Okay, so I have to damage someone as well when I use it. So I should definitely try and use it aggressively for the most part. Getting away probably also won't be possible anyway, so... yep. Yeah, went through the where I live too. It's crazy sometimes, man. It's insane how much the weather changes at times. Oh, we kept Bracken support. Cool. We have kind of a weak initiation frontline outside of me and Chuck. We don't have great initiate. I suppose they don't really either, though. With Hades as well as a Baron. I kind of fucked up here, though. I actually wanted to go... well, I said I wanted to go full damage Chuck, and then change to hybrid, but actually, if I wanted to do this, I should have gone... I do have aspect. Okay, never mind. I'm going full damage Chuck then. I didn't realize I had aspect. Now I kind of have to. That's fine, I haven't done that in a long time, and it is fun to do.
Oh, my
Yeah, I think we have a good like team fight. It's just how our initiate is gonna work is gonna be the hard part. I might miss an extra creep here. We were so slow with that. I did. But so did he. And he blinked. Okay.
Yes.
Definitely need to rock max with this. And I do like doing this on chalk, because I can get back to my lane so much faster.
Okay.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Damage, like full damage chalk with Aspect is just so much more fun as well than not. I'll follow.
An ally has been slain. Your middle tower is under attack. Retreat! Be right back.
You gonna dash this? Oh, I hope he dashed the wave. I didn't originally intend it when I picked the chalk, but I'm actually excited to play it now that I'm just gonna go full damage.
Gained right leg. Retreat!
On my way.
An enemy has
I
been
ain't
slain.
going back to the pen, you hear?
Wait, that's not a good pickup actually.
Been slain.
Yeah, fuck, I should have went Rollers into Hades first. Whatever, I'll do it second.
Your last tower is under attack.
Enemy ultimate down.
Killing spree. On my way. Be careful. Your middle tower is under attack. Enemy spotted. Before me.
That sucks. Losing blue was not on the menu for me.
You are doomed, insects. Ultimate is down.
Flasks are being thrown.
Enemy missing. Enemies in right lane.
Enemies have returned to base.
It just sucks that I'm behind in XP because of that now.
Ultimate is ready.
Loki doing my backcamps also doesn't really help.
Falling back.
Your right tower is under attack.
That's nice though. I'll take those two.
Enemy missing.
Enemy spotted.
Enemy missing.
I'll gank.
Enemy missing left.
Wait.
Cancel that.
I mean, to be fair, all Baron's sound effects are generally very cartoony.
Enemy spotted.
I think it kind of fits it. He is just a very cartoony character. Like, his jump is insanely cartoony.
Be careful, middle.
An ally has been slain. Your middle tower is under attack. An enemy has been slain.
Maybe I'll wait getting brawlers, but I'll just get these two first. Might do that instead. Because I also really need Transcendence.
Your left tower is under attack.
Otherwise my damage is gonna be so much lower than it needs to be.
Killing spree. Shut down. An ally has been slain.
Why are you ordering me for so long just to dash away from me? Fight me!
Your right tower is under attack. You have slain an enemy.
There we go. Let's poke tower here. I don't really want to poke tower too much these days. I feel like it's just not as valuable. But because I actually do damage this time, I'm gonna do it. Might even be able to kill it. If he doesn't have TP, which does, of course.
Killing spree. Your middle tower is under attack. Shut down. Your middle tower is under attack.
On my way. Be careful, right.
Might have thrown it too early.
Missing.
Yeah, I did.
On my way. Gank right lane.
Not great on the rock farming so far. Damn it, man. I just blink.
An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Double
Blip.
Enemy
It's not looking too hot. It's like the same people are getting pretty fed.
Retreat.
That being Zeus as well, not Zeus, Gunther on the Sol and
On my
the
way.
Achilles. So the mid and jungle.
Enemies incoming.
On my way.
Ultimate is ready. Enemies at the Gold Fury.
The pyromancer has
arrived. Your right tower is under attack.
Damn, what distance I covered with that.
Fury, enemy spotted.
Excuse me? Thank you.
Your team has destroyed the Gold Fury.
Missing leg.
An ally has been slain.
Yes.
On my way.
Block it, man! Oh my god. Hecate. I don't want to say anything actually, never mind. I played that pretty bad, but I'm also sad she didn't just block the Achilles ult, so that he's gonna get hit by my ult. He dies if that happens. But that's also me expecting a bit too much from just a random casual that I've never seen before.
Your right tower is under attack.
I should have just insta-ulted him, I guess, but I would have expected him to just like all this response to it. I was trying not to let that happen. Whatever.
Enemy team has destroyed the pyro. An ally has been slain.
We do need to stop dying though,
Is under attack.
randomly. We're just getting them so fat.
Your left tower is under attack.
Oh, you're on a buddy.
You have slain an enemy.
Consumed.
Your middle tower is under attack.
I'll attack right lane. On my way.
On my way.
On my way.
An enemy has been slain. Your middle tower is under attack. Slain an enemy. Shut down.
I protected my heel.
Right lane.
I have nothing else to do, I guess. I can help.
Rock.
Attack right lane.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Completed.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your left tower is under attack. Problem.
It's fine, guys. Just farm.
Enemy missing middle buff.
Your left tower is under attack.
Make sure they don't sneak in fire or some shit. With Soul mid, they can definitely, potentially do it.
Enemy missing leg.
Retreat.
On my word. An ally has been slain.
Enemy ultimate down.
On my way. An ally
Doesn't
has
really look
been
like a good
slain.
fight. It just feels like we can't fight back anywhere. And she has Aegis up.
An ally has been slain.
Sol Aegis down.
The enemy team has destroyed the Gold Fury.
I think that death was really on Hekate. Dude, why are you not doing any damage to these things? That was just Hades being there unexpectedly. Like, he can only run so far as Hekate.
No problem. Enemies in middle lane.
I feel like I'm being stalked. Hades doing the rocks.
There's enemies in middle lane.
Let's just get brawlers now. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, Hekate was in the last game, he was the Izanami. I could clearly tell that mechanically, it, maybe even decision-making wise, maybe not that good,
Enemies at the fire giant.
but... Oh.
An enemy has been slain. Attack fire giant.
Like, that was a great Hekate ult. I'm a bit sad that I threw my shit on them, like, after, or before, rather. So I just couldn't really follow up on it very well.
Under attack. Your team has destroyed the pyramid. Attack middle lane. Killing spree.
Thought I protected my heel.
Your right tower is under attack. Enemies in right lane. Double kill. Now. Be right back.
Spec.
Be careful. An ally has been
I mean, he is a bit far up. That one is definitely on himself. He needs to not go all the way up there. He was the Izanami from the last game who also just overpushed. I took fights that he absolutely could not win against me.
attack.
Gank middle lane.
Enemy missing middle. An enemy has been slain.
At least it seems like the Hades on their team also is not great. I think Danza is also not that great, so.
On my way.
Bit mixed overall in the matchmaking.
On my way. Enemy spotted. Enemies behind us. Triple kill! Unstoppable! Fire giant!
It's working out a little too well for me in these fights. I can't really tank fire. Can someone else tank fire?
Destroyed the fire giant.
Thank God Baron didn't check, because he could easily have stopped us from doing it. With me not being able to actually tank it. Hades blink gold. Dude, I was trying to get to that wind sprite. It was just out of range. That's some horseshit.
On my way.
No, my random finger out attacking for no reason.
Enemy tower.
Welcome.
Slain an enemy. Attack middle lane.
That's solid. That's pretty good for us. Just tank it up, Kraken. want red buff so badly. I don't know what's with my fingers sometimes. It like spasms and then just randomly auto attack for zero reason, and it's stupid. Because I'm just... It just blows me. For no reason.
Okay.
I think normally I guess I should still go Crusher. I was about to say normally I would just go Crusher. I think it's just way better with like the proc build chuck. But without having Titans, I feel like I won't be able to damage the tanks. But they barely have any tanks. Like, they have Baron. That's it. I don't care about Baron. Hades is building full mage.
Attack the Gold Fury. Jax, attack the Gold Fury.
Okay. Bell at a time.
Enemy spotted. Retreat right leg.
Your team has destroyed the Gold Fury.
I just want Cabrakan to tank it so that I can defend.
Place a ward will tear their pawn.
Your left tower is under attack.
Be careful. Enemy spotted. Consumes. Be right back. Be right back.
I don't know why we're back, to be honest. Ow.
Attack fire trooper. Wait.
What a legend.
Double kill. You have seen of
Killing spree.
weaklings.
Enemy spotted.
I'm fucking trying to bait for Zeus. This sucks.
Retreat.
Oh, that's huge. Ah, he's dead. Oh, he has pig. That's so funny.
Have fun.
That's kind of on me. I thought I didn't think I was gonna get straight up one shot. but never mind. Should have waited for my ult. That's just Gunther doing Gunther things. Realistically, I fucked up there too. I got greedy for the Achilles because he's a big pickup for us, but I need to just turn and kill Saul. I think I'm the best target on our team to kill Saul. So I need to just stick to her.
Enemies in right lane. Enemy spotted. Killing spree. Retreat middle lane. An ally has been slain. Under attack. Defend.
I'm on my way. Ultimate is ready.
Oh, that's so unfortunate. No, oh man. And I got to just 0 damage. Dude, just kill them in front of you instead. Why are you focusing the Baron? Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you here. There were so many Dancer clones that I couldn't see who else was there. I didn't even realize Saul was around. I couldn't see anything, man. Also, Blink has not been worth it so far. I would have done so much better with Aegis. So the fact that I can only use it when I ult, and so far that just hasn't been useful anyway. I was being stupid, kind of going on the Baron there, but I was hoping I could kill him. It was just low. But not low enough.
Your middle Phoenix is under attack. Enemies at the Gold Fury. Yes. Your right tower is under attack. Group up.
Guys, go on the Saul. Not everyone else. Just Saul. Just low, Loki. Go in. Follow him, boys. That sucks. I actually think it would have been a good fight. Is the Kate is just not doing well. That's just the blunt of it. I'm sorry to say. Kate is just not doing anything. It looks fun. It's a bit rough, yeah. I didn't even see Hades too. Like, that was well played by Hades. He got the one auto and then just insta-feared me. Oh. Turn on him? Oh.
Your right Phoenix is under attack. An enemy has been slain. Jaguar.
Oh, he got me in combat. That sucks. He actually got me in combat. Yeah, Blink still sucks, guys. Was his stuttering as well?
Your left tower is
Blink
under
is still ass. Where's my Aegis? Should have done that.
retreat.
Like, why is she going up here? I just don't understand.
Be careful.
And precise.
Your team has destroyed the pyromancer. Your team has destroyed a left enemy tower. Enemies at the Gold Fury. Gang,
I'm on my way.
gang.
Dude. Well, I don't even know what this was. I fucked up, but it's just we're not going on Saul. I feel like I'm the only one who tries every single fight. We literally win the fight if she dies.
Retreat. Retreat. The enemy team has destroyed the Gold Fury.
Enemies at the fire giant.
Loki, can you go push mid real fast while they do fire? Maybe you get the Phoenix.
Hey, this is back in 10.
Yeah, you could also just go to fire. Maybe you can see something. Or get something out of it.
The enemy team has destroyed the fire giant. Okay.
That's too bad.
Is full damage Chuck good? Not really, not at the moment. It used to be very good. Now it's not great.
Enemies
Tanks
at
are just
the Gold
better.
Enemies in middle lane.
Deep in.
I really want a 3k pot though. I really want a 3k pot.
Immortal.
Oh. That's a Katya and Loki gone.
An ally has been slain.
So close to a 3k pot, it hurts me physically.
Pyromancer has arrived. Your little phoenix is under attack. Your little phoenix has been destroyed. An enemy has been slain. Your right phoenix is under attack.
I mean, it doesn't even matter. Sol is just so fucking nasty against this build of Chuck because I can't get away from him. I didn't even get my ult off even though I pressed.
Your titan is under attack.
mean, she did struggle against Gunter, but I think she's just bad. Like, I don't generally want to say that lightly, but I think it's just the truth. I think he is just bad.
Defeat.
Like, he just walks up and dies. I think there is a difference between being bad and then simply just, like, being mechanically bad and then bad. This guy is bad. He just walks up and dies. He literally just walks up and dies. Kidding. I see they have their own spouts. Hades is making space. That's so funny. Alright, I mean, I was bound to lose eventually today. I just wish we didn't have someone who kept dying, because our fights could have been really good in a 5v5, but Hekate was never alive in these fights at all. I would have liked Kebraken to be frontlining a bit more as well. More like tanking objectives, I guess. Because I would have liked to zone more. But I kept having to tank objectives. I don't really think that mattered a whole lot in the grand scheme of these games. Or in that game. Yeah, I mean, 23k on Hekate, who is a long-ranged poke god, is pretty bad as well. I think he was just bad. I'm sorry to say. I don't blame him, like personally at all as well. Shit happens, man. Like, he was in a game he absolutely shouldn't be in. He's against arguably the best mid in EU. It's not his fault. That's just matchmaking screwing him. I can't blame him for that. You could say the same thing with Hades. Like, he's dealing with me, who might not be, you know, a top soul necessarily, but I would at least say I'm probably like top 10 EU souls. I've been playing the game for a long time, so him dealing with someone as experienced as me is obviously also not something he can't say much about, because there's no way I should be winning this matchup. Alright. Mostly because I'm full damage Chuck. I think full tank Chuck, sure. I mean, he doesn't really lose to anything, but full damage Chuck actually has a pretty shit matchup into Hades. Alright. Still more than a minute, John. He did. He's also playing Hades. All he needs to do is press 5 or 4. 5. He's got that secret button. He just needs to press 4. He's done more than most people. That's just Hades stuff. He just, like, he dashes in, ults, and then dies, but he's already, at that point, done his job as Hades. A good player will make sure that he doesn't necessarily die from it, but he just gets a bunch of kills out of it. You know? Yeah, Gunter was really fed, but I think in the later parts where Gunter just killed me, that shouldn't have happened. That's just me playing it bad. If I pre-ult when he dove me at the Phoenix, I shouldn't have died. And I deal damage back to him too. That's just me not respecting the amount of damage that the full damage Saul is putting out. Anyway though, as I said, I am gonna leave. I'm sweating my ass off. It's so hot, I want to grab something cold and cool down a bit. So, thank you guys for watching, I really do appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!